Sometimes life throws moments at us that are so shocking, so unbelievable, that for a few seconds, you feel like the world has stopped. This story is one of those moments. I never imagined that a simple conversation with my son would turn my whole world upside down. Before we dive in, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss more heartfelt stories like this one. It was a quiet Sunday morning. The kind of morning where the sunlight drifts lazily through the curtains, and the air feels calm, almost untouched by the chaos of the week. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my favorite mug in hand, sipping coffee that was just the right temperature, not too hot, not too cold, scrolling through my phone, half listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant chirping of birds outside. There was a rare, almost comforting silence in the house. My son, Ethan, had just come home from college for the weekend. He looked older somehow, more confident, but still carried that familiar, easy-going smile that always made me feel at ease. We hadn't seen each other in months. Life had gotten busy for both of us, him with his classes, assignments, and friends, me with work, errands, and the never-ending tasks of running a household. And yet, in this quiet morning, it felt like we had all the time in the world. I thought it would be the perfect moment to catch up, to talk about life in a way we hadn't in months, about his studies, his friends, his plans, maybe even the small victories and failures that make up the day-to-day of a young adult. We laughed about silly college stories, reminisced about old family memories. And for a moment, it felt like nothing had changed at all. But beneath the surface of our easy conversation, there was a question I had been avoiding for a long time. A question I knew I couldn't put off any longer, the one about his future, about marriage. The thought had been weighing on me quietly, like a shadow in the corner of the room. And now, looking at him sitting there, sipping his coffee the same way I did, I knew I had to ask it. "Ethan," I said, trying to keep my voice light, casual, as if it were just another topic. "So, have you thought about marriage yet?" He froze for a second, his eyes meeting mine, calm, almost unreadable. There was a pause, long enough that my heart started to race a little. I told myself it was normal, that maybe he was just thinking of the right words, but deep down, I had a strange feeling something was different this time. Then, with a small, quiet smile, he said words that stopped me completely. "Yeah, Mom. I actually already got married." I blinked, slowly. I stared at him as if I needed to make sure he was really saying what I thought he was saying. Maybe I didn't hear him right. Maybe I had imagined it. "Wait, what?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly, a mix of disbelief and rising panic. I said, "I'm married," he repeated, his tone calm, casual, like this was the most ordinary thing in the world. I felt my chest tighten. My mind went into overdrive. Married? Already? When did this happen? How could he make such a huge decision without telling me? And who? Who was she? I could feel my pulse quicken as questions swirled in my head faster than I could even form them. For a few seconds, I just stared at him, frozen. Words seemed useless. Everything in the room, the ticking of the clock, the sunlight streaming through the window, even the quiet hum of the refrigerator, suddenly felt louder, sharper, almost surreal. I couldn't process it. I wanted to scream, to laugh nervously, to cry, anything. But all I could do was sit there, staring at my son, trying to figure out if my world had just shifted without warning. And then, almost instinctively, I whispered, "Ethan." "Who?" "Ethan, you can't just get married without telling me. Who is she?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. though it quivered with a mixture of shock, anger, and, honestly, pure confusion. My heart was racing, and I could feel my hands trembling slightly on the table. Ethan shifted in his seat, running a hand through his hair nervously. He gave a small, almost apologetic chuckle. "Mom, her name's Lily," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "We got married last month." I froze. My mind went blank for a moment. A month? A whole month? And I had no idea. Not a single hint. Not a text, not a call. Nothing. I could feel my chest tighten, a mixture of disbelief and a strange kind of hurt bubbling up inside me. "I know I should have told you sooner," he continued, looking at me earnestly. "But it all happened so fast. We didn't plan it this way. It was just something we both felt was right at the moment. It wasn't about hiding it from you." I swear. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, to calm the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in my head. I wanted to understand. How could my son make such a huge decision without me knowing? Did he even think about what this would mean for our family? Yet, despite the shock, I caught the sincerity in his eyes. He wasn't being reckless. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He was just following his heart. And in that moment, I realized that while I felt blindsided, maybe what mattered most was that he was happy. But still, 1,000 questions raced through my mind. When did he meet her? How did they decide so quickly? And what was she like? Wait, slow down. You got married? Like, in a ceremony? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. I felt a mixture of disbelief and curiosity, my heart still racing from the shock of hearing him say those words. "Yes," he said quietly, his tone calm but certain. "Just family. Nothing big. We wanted it to be private. We didn't plan a wedding or anything fancy." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My mind was still spinning with questions. How had this happened so quickly? Why hadn't he thought to consult me? Did he even consider how I'd feel? And most importantly, who was this girl who had suddenly become a part of our lives? I could feel a strange mix of emotions: shock, confusion, curiosity, and even a little anxiety, as I looked at him. My instinct as a parent was to scold him, maybe even feel a little betrayed. But underneath all that, I felt a growing sense of urgency. I needed to meet her. I needed to see for myself the woman my son had chosen to spend his life with. "All right," I said slowly, gathering my thoughts. "I need to meet her. Now." The relief on his face was immediate. He smiled, a warmth in his eyes that I hadn't seen in a while. "Of course, Mom," he said. "She's just in the living room. Come on. I want you to meet her properly." My stomach twisted with nervous anticipation. I wondered what she would be like. Was she kind, respectful? Someone who could make my son happy? Would I like her? Could I accept this sudden surprise? As I followed him down the hallway, each step felt heavier than the last. A mix of anxiety and excitement swirling together. And then, just a few steps away, I heard her voice. Calm, gentle, laughing softly. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. The moment where everything changed, where I would finally meet the woman who had become my daughter-in-law. Without warning, without preparation, and yet, somehow, already a part of our family. I took a slow, hesitant step into the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. And there she was, Lily, sitting on the sofa with a quiet grace, a soft smile playing on her lips, radiating a calm warmth that immediately caught my attention. She looked at me and stood up, extending her hand politely. "Hi, Mrs. Collins," she said, her voice gentle, sincere. "It's so nice to finally meet you." Honestly, She wasn't what I had imagined at all. I had braced myself for awkwardness, for tension, maybe even a hint of rebellion. I thought I'd feel that instant friction that sometimes comes with meeting someone so suddenly in your family. But she was different. There was something genuine in her eyes, a quiet confidence, and an ease about her that made me feel, almost immediately, that she cared, not just for Ethan, but for our family too. Ethan reached out and held her hand, squeezing it gently. And I watched them together. There was an undeniable comfort between them, a kind of happiness that was rare and beautiful. They laughed softly at a small joke she made, leaning toward each other in that effortless way that only people who truly belong together can. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Maybe happiness isn't loud or dramatic. Maybe it doesn't announce itself with grand gestures. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, in a smile, a gentle laugh, or a hand held in comfort. And maybe, just maybe, this was exactly what happiness looked like for my son. I felt a strange mix of relief and warmth wash over me. My shock, my confusion, my initial frustration, all of it, suddenly seemed smaller, less important. I could feel a sense of acceptance blooming inside me. Perhaps it was time to let go of my expectations and embrace this new reality. Lily, I said softly, with a small smile of my own, I can see why he's so happy. Her smile widened, and I could feel a bridge forming between us, one built on understanding and respect. And in that moment, I knew that despite the suddenness, despite the surprise, this was something worth celebrating. For the first time since he had told me, I truly felt at peace. Over the next few hours, we all sat together in the living room, sipping coffee and letting the conversation flow naturally. At first, it was a bit awkward, small talk about the weather, college, and work. But gradually, the room started to feel lighter, warmer, more comfortable. Lily began sharing stories about how she and Ethan had met. She laughed softly as she described their first awkward encounter at a coffee shop, and Ethan chimed in with his version, exaggerating the details and making both of us laugh. The way they talked to each other was gentle and full of care, a quiet intimacy that only comes from really knowing someone. Then, she told me how they had decided to get married so quickly. It wasn't planned, she admitted, but we just knew. It felt right, and we wanted it to be a small, private moment between family. I nodded slowly, trying to process everything. My mind had been spinning since that morning, but hearing her words, seeing the sincerity in her eyes, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Even though this had come as a total surprise, it was clear that Ethan hadn't acted on impulse alone. He had chosen someone who truly cared for him, someone who brought out the best in him, and that made all the difference. I found myself laughing at their little jokes, and at one point, quietly wiping away a tear that had slipped down my cheek. It wasn't sadness, it was a mixture of relief, happiness, and a sense of acceptance. My son was happy, and for a parent, that's all that really matters. By the end of the afternoon, I felt a connection growing, not just with Ethan, but with Lily as well. I realized that sometimes, life's surprises aren't meant to scare us or upset our plans. They're meant to teach us patience, to open our hearts, and to show us that love often arrives in ways we least expect. I watched them laugh together, hand in hand, and I felt a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. In that moment, I understood that family isn't just about tradition or timing. It's about trust, acceptance, and embracing the unexpected. That day, I didn't just gain a daughter-in-law. I gained a deeper understanding of love, and a reminder that life's surprises, no matter how shocking at first, can bring the most beautiful moments. That night, After Lily had gone to her room to rest and Ethan had retreated to his, I found myself alone in the living room. The house was quiet now. The kind of quiet that makes you feel both small and reflective at the same time. I sank into the sofa, wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, and let my mind wander through everything that had happened today. Life is unpredictable, I thought. One moment, you think you know what's coming. The next, it surprises you in ways you could never imagine. People we love, our children, our family, make choices that don't always make sense at first. Sometimes, those choices shock us, leave us feeling blindsided, even hurt. But sometimes, those choices bring an unexpected kind of joy, a happiness that fills a space you didn't even realize was empty. Ethan had made a big decision. He hadn't told me right away, and yes, at first, that stung. I couldn't help feeling a little left out, a little blindsided. But as I thought about him laughing with Lily, holding her hand, sharing stories and gentle smiles, my heart softened. Seeing him truly happy, seeing him loved, that's all a parent could ever hope for. That's all that truly matters in the end. I realized, in that quiet, reflective moment, that love, real, genuine love, deserves acceptance. It deserves patience. It deserves trust. It isn't always about timing, or tradition, or doing things in the right way. Sometimes, it's about letting go of expectations, embracing surprises, and believing in the happiness of the people you care about most. And as I sat there, staring at the soft glow of the lamp and hearing the faint hum of the house settling into night, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Life had surprised me today. Yes, but in the most beautiful way possible. I smiled softly to myself, whispering into the stillness, "You've chosen well, Ethan. You've chosen well." And with that thought, I let go of my worries, my shock, my doubts, and embraced the happiness that had quietly entered our home, unexpected, sudden, but undeniably real. So, to all the parents out there, life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Sometimes, it will catch you completely off guard. Sometimes, it will challenge every expectation you've ever had about how things should happen. And yes, sometimes it will even make you question yourself, your role, your place in your child's life. But here's the truth I've learned today. Love is always worth it. Real love. The kind that grows quietly and genuinely, doesn't need grand announcements or approvals. It doesn't always follow the path you imagined. Sometimes, it comes quietly, unexpectedly, without warning. And yet, when it touches your life, it leaves a mark that you carry forever. For me, that unexpected surprise, the news that my son was already married, brought something incredible. It brought my son happiness. It brought him love, companionship, and someone who cares for him in a way that is beautiful and true. And in the end, that is all that truly matters. It reminded me that life's most meaningful moments often come from the things we never saw coming. The moments that shock us at first can, in time, become the ones we cherish most deeply. And as I reflect on today, I realize that acceptance, patience, and trust are the gifts we give, not just to our children, but to ourselves. So, if you ever feel blindsided by life, by choices made by those you love, remember this: sometimes, the universe has a way of surprising us with the very happiness we were too afraid to imagine. And sometimes, letting go, embracing the unexpected, and opening your heart, is exactly what makes life so beautiful. Because love, in all its forms, deserves to be celebrated. And happiness, even when it arrives quietly or unexpectedly, deserves to be embraced with an open heart. And for me, I am grateful. Grateful for my son, For Lily, for this unexpected moment that changed our lives, and reminded me that the most beautiful things often arrive when we least expect them. If you liked this video and felt it touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And please, let me know in the comments what you thought. How did the story make you feel? I'd love to hear from you.